On today's program, we'll be looking back at some of the most memorable stories in our 20 years of broadcasting here in the Middle East. With over 20 years of reporting from Jerusalem, CBN News has had the privilege to report on the front lines of Israel's history and of the Middle East. In this edition, we bring you some of the stories we thought were significant over that time. We begin with the Mission of Mercy by the Israel Defense Forces, or the IDF. CBN News was given an exclusive look at what was then a secret IDF mission. It was a one-of-a-kind Middle East story that combines the IDF, Christian medical personnel on the front lines, and the brutality of the Syrian civil war. The story begins here on the Golan Heights in the dead of night. Israeli soldiers inside Syria providing hope in the form of life-saving medical supplies for Syrians caught in a long and bloody civil war. Their partner? A Christian aid group called Frontier Alliance International, or FAI.
We support the state of Israel and we love the Jewish people. So to be able to engage the Syrian crisis through the Israeli border in cooperation with the Israeli army is a huge privilege for us as an organization.
On this night, Dr. Sally Parsons and trauma nurse Debbie Dennison returned from a 7-week tour of duty in a Syrian village.
This was a long trip too.
Yeah. It was very good though, very good.
Lots of trauma coming in, brought in another head injury.
Parsons and Dennison served in this makeshift hospital.
Why did you go in?
Because the Lord calls us into all the world, to all the nations. But I specifically felt God told me this was what I was supposed to be doing.
Parsons, a surgeon for 30 years, faced procedures she never did before. When the team didn't know what to do, they turned to prayer and even YouTube.
How many incisions? 3? How many compartments
well,
are you gonna?
You got me. I think it's probably 2, but cutting the skin. Okay, so they're just going lateral.
And then we downloaded a YouTube for a cesarean section, and we did that, and I prayed a lot more than I read.
During her career, Parsons had never performed a C-section. In Syria, she did 6.
And I have to tell you, when I delivered that first little baby, I could just feel his hands on my hands. It's what sustained us, to be able to see new life in the midst of such horrific war was just a blessing beyond belief.
Dennison found a hidden beauty beneath the veil of the Syrian women.
In the women's exam room, they would take off that burqa and they would reveal their faces. And it was so miraculous to me because they were no longer hidden. But the beauty of these people would come out, these women, and it was no longer someone without a personality, but it was a woman with a life, and it was a woman with her children. We met them in their glory, we met them in their beauty, we met them in their pain. And it was an amazing experience for me.
Parsons and her team sent the worst cases back to Israel. Their mission is part of a larger project called Good Neighbor, where Israel provides food, fuel, water, and medical treatment across the border. So far, Israel has treated more than 5,000 Syrians in Israeli hospitals. Israeli Major Sergei serves as the Good Neighbor Chief Medical Officer.
Why do you do this?
From one side, this is a very simple question. I can see the other side of the border that's starvated in his place and don't bring him the help. This is a huge situation that they live there, and this is my point. This is my opportunity to bring them help where they need this. I'm very proud to do this.
I don't know of another military in the world who would prioritize affectionate engagement with their enemy to build a good neighborhood. What the IDF has done over the last 5 or 6 years since the revolution started has said, hey, let's put politics to the side and let's seek to build a good neighborhood by being good neighbors.
I'm very proud to be in this point. I must tell thank you for the FIA organization about that. They bring the high professional medical staff to help to the Syrian side. This is not as simple, and I am, especially as an Israel officer, I'm very proud to be in this situation.
Most of the wounded come here to Nahariya Hospital in Israel. We dressed up in gown and gloves to sit down with these Syrian men who received not only a physical healing, but a transformation of the heart. We concealed their identity for their own protection.
Once I arrived in Israel, my point of view of the Israeli people changed completely. I was told that Israel is the bad guy, that Israel is the enemy. Now I know that it's just the opposite. I thank God I arrived in Israel in time, because if I had not come here, I wouldn't be alive.
The team changed this Syrian's view about Christians.
Before, I thought that Christians were bad people, but I found out that they are good people, and they helped me.
During the mission, they faced barrel bombs like this one and took shelter some 60 times. They even faced this Russian MiG.
I considered that I could lose my life there, but I considered that if he called me there, he was going to sustain me through that, and that everything was going to be fine.
You had to count the cost. You had to say, do I love you enough that I'm willing to lay down my life? Of course. And my answer was yes.
Thomas calls them heroes.
These are laid down, selfless, incredibly Christ-like people. The author of Hebrews said, these are of whom the world is not worthy. I think these people are of whom the world is not worthy.
Other teams are operating inside Syria now, and the joint project is growing. Thomas says Christians can help.
First of all, pray, make intercession. Jesus was clear, pray to the Lord of the harvest, send forth laborers. Secondly, come. If you're a medical professional, if you love the Lord, and if you can handle these circumstances, you can work in a team in an environment like this, we want you and we need you.
Some consider this a genuine Middle East peace plan. Jews helping Christians, helping Muslims.
People are people, no matter what label we put on them, Muslim or Christian or Jew, but underneath their label, they're men and they're women that have the same needs. They have the same pains and the same hurts that we do, and they need the same compassion and love. No matter what the barriers, all people respond to love. And we were, as Christians, going into a community, they didn't know us, they have a historic animosity towards Christian, but all it took was an expression of love, and we were welcomed with open arms.
Alpha, Omega.